So I was just going about my merry way today, meandering my way through my emails, when I got hit with a rather simple yet weighty email. See, every single day I receive a litany of two different kinds of emails. The first kind of email is a grouping of emails of people pretending to be the CEO of Fortune 500 companies reaching out to me to advertise their product, which is like it's a weird scam. I've never really emailed them back to see what they're trying to pull, but they're like, hello, I am the CEO of Procter & Gamble, and we want you to advertise our products. It's easier if I just read one for you. Okay, I just got an email from somebody, contact Giselle at op.pl, and their name on their email is just Voss, as in the water. Email goes, greetings YouTuber, space, comma, reaching out from the team at Voss Water. Our team is excited about the prospect of a collaborative opportunity with you. Could you please confirm that this is your preferred way to reach out for you for upcoming collaborations? Space, question mark, many thank. What's the grift there? But the other kind of email is emails about anime things. And while plenty of the emails are emails about anime things that I've answered thousands of times, and usually I'll just send them the YouTube video of me answering their specific question, because instead of typing out a whole answer, why don't I get another view out of it? But occasionally, and I mean occasionally, I'll get emailed a question that genuinely I've never answered before. And well, if I've never answered the question before, I'll go out of my way to answer the question for the person asking me. Usually, that's where the interaction ends. Somebody asks me a relatively simple question, I go, huh, never thought of that. And then I think up a possible answer and I answer their question. Because genuinely, it's really hard to extrapolate one question into a whole video. However, today, that's not the case. See, because today, while I was asked a relatively simple question that had a relatively simple and straightforward answer, the more I got to thinking about this question and its respective answer, the more I realized there's a rabbit hole here. But what is this relatively simple question, and what's its relatively simple answer, and more importantly, what's the rabbit hole? Well, let's start with the question. The question asks, why can Ao, and for those of you who don't remember, Ao was the Mizukage's aide, the one with blue hair and an eye patch who was able to look at Yagura using the Byakugan he stole during one of the wars, I don't remember which one, probably the third, and was able to tell that Yagura had been put under the spell of a genjutsu that he was subsequently broken out of that led to Yagura's death. Yeah, that Ao. They asked, why can Ao activate and deactivate their Byakugan when no other person who has the dojutsu of a clan that they don't belong to has the ability to deactivate said dojutsu? And genuinely, for some reason, I'd never thought of that. Ao gets introduced about halfway through Shippuden, and for some reason, the idea that Ao was able to activate and deactivate his Byakugan when people like Kakashi, Danzo, and Shin aren't able to activate and deactivate theirs never really hit me as weird. Possibly because one of them's using a Byakugan and one of them's using a Sharingan, but still, technically as Ao is not a Hyuga clan member, he shouldn't be able to activate and deactivate his Byakugan. If anything, his Byakugan should be constantly activated, kind of like how Kakashi, Danzo, and Shin Sharingan are always activated. And honestly, while the answer to this question might seem obvious from an outside of the universe perspective, possible in-universe explanation sent me down a rabbit hole that I wasn't entirely prepared for. A deep and winding rabbit hole that somehow explains why the Hyuga have a main and side branch family system. Yeah, while stumbling for the answer of the in-universe explanation as to why Ao was able to activate and deactivate his Byakugan, I realized that Ao's variability to activate and deactivate his Byakugan explains why the Hyuga have their incredibly cruel side branch family system. And while I'm not endorsing the side branch family system, now that I understand what I do about the Hyuga, the Byakugan, and what happens when a Byakugan ends up in the face of somebody not with the last name of Hyuga, I'm beginning to understand is why the Hyuga would feel as though the presence of a side branch family would be a necessity. Because without the side branch family system, the Hyuga would have disappeared generations ago. In fact, generations might be kind. The Hyuga may have never even risen to power if not for the side branch family. And the key to understanding all of that, the 2,000 years of Hyuga history, lies in the one simple fact that Ao can deactivate and activate his Byakugan. And that is what we're going to be talking about today. Because today we're talking the Hyuga's caste system was the right thing to do. Before we get into the relatively deep water of explaining the moral obligations of a caste system, guys, please, for me, like the video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you guys want to hear me make profound statements about some of your other favorite anime, go ahead and follow my other channel, The Weeb Commander, where instead of talking about Naruto and Boruto, I talk all other anime. If you guys just want to hear me make incredibly non-profound statements about anime, go ahead and follow my anime podcast, Otaku's Anonymous, where me and Danny Mata break down everything that happened in anime this week. It's available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Or if you want to look like somebody who just talks profoundly about anime, go ahead and meander into my merch store, talkusanonymous.net, where you can pick up pick up some of the greatest anime t-shirts, sweatshirts, and sticker packs known to man. Before we get into all that, today we gotta talk about a brand new sponsor to the page, Skytech Gaming. Skytech has you covered when it comes to all things pre-built PCs or custom PCs. Skytech has options for every level of budget and experience. It doesn't matter if you're brand new to computers or a seasoned vet, Skytech has got you covered. And if you go the custom PC route, Skytech even gives you the option to watch your custom PC be built live on their Twitch, twitch.tv/Skytech Gaming Official. And everything that you get from Skytech Gaming comes with a 1-year guarantee and a lifetime customer service guarantee. They also offer easy pay over time financing options and an affiliate program where those of you with communities of your own could earn 6% on sales to those in your immediate circle. And 6% of a custom PC build is pretty good. And you can sign up with this using the link in my description. So if you're looking for a great PC, make sure you visit Skytech Gaming today. So when you consider the question, why can Ao activate and deactivate his Byakugan, the answer might seem fairly simple, especially if you're looking at the question from an outside of the universe explanation standpoint. See, because to me at least, the reason that Ao has the ability to activate and deactivate the Byakugan is because if he didn't, him having a Byakugan would be more of a curse than a blessing. In fact, if he didn't have the ability to deactivate the Byakugan, he'd be dead by now. He would have been dead hours, if not minutes, after transplanting that Byakugan into his face. Unless, of course, he proceeded to yank that Byakugan back out of his face. Because, like as we all know, if somebody ends up with a Sharingan that's not theirs, like Kakashi, Danzo, or Shin, they have the ability to cover those Sharingan. And because technically those Sharingan aren't looking at anything, the chakra drain associated with having them activated is substantially lessened. And this is why Kakashi wears his headband over one of his eyes, why Danzo wears long sleeves and has wrappings over one of his eyes. Shin's a bit of an exception. He has an insane amount of chakra because he has Hashirama's cells grafted onto it. But then again, so does Danzo, and this is why Shin and Danzo are able to have multiple activated Sharingan constantly. However, as we know though, just covering up the Sharingan doesn't completely erase the chakra expenditure associated with having an activated Sharingan, but the lessening of that drain is what we're looking for here. Unfortunately, that is not the case with the Byakugan. Covering a Byakugan would accomplish a grand total of absolutely nothing. A Byakugan, when activated, is able to see in all 360 degrees for up to a kilometer. I don't know if you guys know this, but if you want to see in all 360 degrees, that means you have to see through your own skull, which, at least in my case, is a fair bit thicker than any piece of cloth you're gonna wrap around my eyes. Because of this, regardless of how much cloth you wrap around your eyes, you're still going to be able to see, as the Byakugan function a lot like the Six Eyes. Gojo's able to see through his wrappings, he just sees better when they're not on.
Or should I say that the Six Eyes operate like the Byakugan because they came first?
And this is corroborated by the fact that when Ao ever activates his Byakugan, he doesn't remove his eye patch. He just looks through it, because the Byakugan is able to see through trees, rocks, houses, and if it can see through all of those much denser than cloth things from a kilometer away, yeah, putting a bandage over your eye isn't going to fix anything. And thus, if hypothetically Ao's Byakugan was activated constantly, he would just die of chakra drain. And thus the only way for Ao to stop this chakra drain would either be to destroy his Byakugan or take it out, which would make the inclusion of a character with one Byakugan that they stole from a Hyuga clan member that they either killed or just plucked the eye out of impossible. So from an outside universe perspective, yeah, it makes a lot of sense that Ao has the ability to activate and deactivate his Byakugan, as the constant activation of the Byakugan would either kill him through chakra drain or simply just blind him. Because activating a Byakugan is not only incredibly draining on your chakra, it's also very stressful on your body. As in order to use a Byakugan at the height of its powers, you have to funnel a ton of blood to your eyes. And this is why whenever a Hyuga clan member activates their Byakugan, all of the veins around their eyes pop out. So if the chakra expenditure didn't kill him, the constant redirection of all of the blood in his body to his eyes probably would have. Now, like I said, obviously this isn't the case with the Sharingan, but that doesn't mean that there isn't an associated constant chakra drain that comes along with having a Sharingan you can't shut off. As we learned from Kakashi after he lost his Sharingan in the 4th Great Shinobi World War, that Hokage Kakashi and after Hokage Kakashi has a chakra pool that's borderline incomparable to the chakra pool he had in the 4th Great Shinobi World War. That is to say that it's massively larger. So much larger that Kakashi is able to maintain a lightning resistant mud wall around an entire village for 12 hours. And mind you, this lightning resistant mud wall is under constant barrage from cannons that shoot lightning. And Earth release is inherently weak to lightning release, and therefore Kakashi had to line the wall with quartz, which cost him even more chakra, as the quartz made his mud wall invulnerable to lightning attacks. And the specific reason cited for the fact that Kakashi was able to pull off a feat like this was the fact that he no longer had the chakra drain of having a Sharingan. However, Kakashi pulling a feat like this off showed us that Kakashi has always had one of the largest chakra pools in all of Naruto, because the list of people from Naruto and Naruto Shippuden who would be able to pull off something like holding up a mud wall for 12 hours is less than 10. In fact, it might be less than 5. And thus, while Kakashi's chakra pool technically didn't get any bigger when he lost his Sharingan, he now, for the first time since he was 13, had access to the entirety of his chakra pool, which should show us that even though his Sharingan was covered the majority of the time, it was limiting his chakra usage pretty substantially. And this is important, because if Kakashi, one of the wielders of the largest chakra pools in the entirety of Naruto, was that handicapped by just having one Sharingan, that, mind you, he kept covered most of the time, then it's safe to say that the drain of having a Sharingan as a non-Uchiha member is probably too much for anybody outside of people like Kakashi, meaning that only people in the top 1% of the 1% of the 1% of chakra pools are able to wield a Sharingan if they're not in Uchiha. And thus the Uchiha kind of had a built-in deterrent to the concept of people trying to take their eyes and use them against them. Because if hypothetically I was a ninja of fair to slightly above average strength with fair to slightly above average chakra, and I killed a decently strong Uchiha, one might assume that the first thing that I would do is snag their eyes and shove them into my face. Because now as a fair to slightly above average strength ninja, I'm now way stronger through the usage of the Sharingan. Except, of course, that I can't deactivate them. See, not only would I not want 2 Sharingan because I'd have to cover them both and then I couldn't see, but as somebody with a fair to middling amount of chakra, even one Sharingan might make me entirely useless, which is why, even though the Uchiha have existed for thousands of years and have died in droves for thousands of years, we weren't seeing your average Senju yank out their eyes and toss one of them into their face, because more likely than not, people understood that if you weren't an Uchiha, a Sharingan was a load too heavy for you to properly bear, and thus the Uchiha technically had built-in insurance to make sure that people wouldn't steal their eyes post-mortem, or wouldn't try to steal their eyes while they were still alive. And this would explain why the Uchiha never technically took any precautions to make sure that their eyes weren't stolen. There was no side branch families, there was no cursed seals, there was no political maneuvering. The Uchiha just simply knew that other people knew that they wouldn't be able to use the Sharingan, and thus they went about their days. But the same, very obviously, can't be said about the Hyuga. See, because the entire main branch and side branch system is predicated on the defense of the Byakugan, and more importantly, its secrets, is at least what they say in the show and the manga. But how does the system work, and how does it protect the Byakugan? Well, as we all know, there's a side branch and a main branch, and quite frankly, you're either born into the main branch or the side branch, with really the only differentiator being that if the leader of the main branch family has 2 children, then the oldest stays in the main branch and the youngest goes to the side branch. And this is what happened with Hayashi, Hinata's dad, and Hizashi, Neji's dad. But other than that, if you're born into the side branch family, you're the side branch. If you're born into the main branch family, you're in the main branch. The side branch family's entire role in life is to protect the main branch family. But how do they do that, and why are they qualified to do that? Well, every single member of the side branch family receives a curse mark in the form of a manji on their forehead. And these curse marks are placed on the members of the side branch family when the next head of the main branch family is born. So when Hinata was born, all of the members of the side branch family that didn't already have curse marks were given curse marks. Oh wait, I'm sorry, it happens on the 3rd birthday of the next heir or heiress, not when they're born. But regardless, that means that Neji got his curse mark when Hinata turned 3. And these curse marks allow main branch family members to control side branch family members. But how? Basically, these curse marks give the main branch family members the ability to impose a massive amount of damage and pain to the forehead of any side branch family member. So it's controlled through the fact that they have a guaranteed way to hurt the side branch family members if they disobey. And this can lead to death. In fact, it leads to death more often than not. Because if hypothetically a main branch family member imposes too much damage through the curse mark, it fries the brain of the straight up death. And while this is an important aspect of how the curse mark works, technically, if you asked any member of the main branch family what the most important aspect of how the curse mark works, they would say it's that when the side branch family members die, their Byakugan eyes and seals their Byakugan away forever. And this is why Hizashi Hyuga, after the Hyuga incident, after the conclusion of the Third Great Shinobi World War, was killed in replacement of Hayashi because his body, when sent to the Hidden Cloud, wouldn't be able to have the Byakugan extracted. However, because Hayashi and Hizashi were twins, the Hidden Cloud didn't know any better. And thus, by sending the corpse of Hizashi, the Hidden Cloud weren't able to get their grubby little mitts on the secrets of the Byakugan. And since this system is in place, usually members of the side branch family are the people out on the front lines of wars and battles. As if a member of the side branch family dies, it's not that consequential. I mean, obviously nobody wants any of the Hyuga dead, but at least the Byakugan can't be stolen from their faces. However, this doesn't mean that members of the main branch family don't fight. They absolutely do. However, they'll only ever fight with other members of the side branch family present, as the side branch family members have to guarantee that the main branch family member either doesn't die or at least can get away, usually giving up their life in order to ensure that goal. Because the main branch family members who don't bear the curse seal once they're dead can simply have their eyes popped out. And apparently, with the knowledge that we've learned from the fact that Ao was able to activate and deactivate his Byakugan, and therefore use it just as effectively as any member of the Hyuga clan, outside of Gentle Fist obviously, it's a possibility that the Hyuga also knew this. See, because while it's clear and obvious to us how a Byakugan works in the face of somebody not named Hyuga, the Hyuga have been around for over 2,000 years. And I doubt that the side branch family and the main branch family was Hamura's idea. And thus it probably became abundantly evident to the earliest iterations of the Hyuga that whenever they lost the Hyuga, somebody was able to not only take their eyes, but use it just as well as them. And while sure, they didn't have access to things like the Gentle Fist and the Palms techniques, they would still be able to access the massive visual prowess of the Byakugan at next to no cost. And therefore, the earliest iterations of the Hyuga realized that if we lost a couple of people, maybe 2 or so dozen, and a rival clan were to take their bodies and steal their Byakugan, we as a clan would technically lose all relevance. Not only would they lose all relevance, they'd lose any advantage they had in battle. Because while the Hyuga had the ability to be a kilometer away from somebody and still see them and track them, if that person also has a Byakugan, they can be tracking you right back. Now, any political or battle advantage that we might have had previous is erased, because the one thing that make the Hyuga clan the most powerful clan in Konoha, and therefore by extension probably the most powerful clan on Earth, is their Byakugan. But if anybody can use the secret ace in their sleeve, then it's hardly a secret ace, unless you do everything in your power to make sure that nobody else can ever get their hands on it. And here's the thing, in-universe people being able to activate and deactivate the Byakugan actually makes a lot of sense if you think of the activation of a Byakugan like the activation of an MS. See, we all know that Kakashi and Danzo and Shin are able to activate their Sharingan from a base form to that of an MS, which is perplexing given what we know about Dojutsu, because that's not their Kekkei Genkai, and therefore, why are they able to activate an MS? Now, the best reason we have to explain this is because when all 3 of these people received these MS eyes, they most likely weren't activated into their MS form. That is to say, when Danzo popped out Shisui's Kodo Matsukame, it wasn't in its Kodo Matsukame swirly form. When Kakashi received Obito's eyes, Obito hadn't even awoken MS yet, and the MS that Shin had was created by Orochimaru, and therefore it wouldn't be activated until placed in Shin. And therefore, because they didn't receive the Sharingan at their highest level, they never had to worry about deactivating an aspect of a Kekkei Genkai that they didn't own. However, since there's a fair amount of possibility that all of the eyes that Danzo, Kakashi, and Shin put into their body at some point or another were in their base form when extracted, as all of the eyes that Danzo had he collected on the night of the massacre, we know for a fact that Obito's eyes were activated when Kakashi took it because he was just in a battle against a hidden stone shinobi, and once again, Shin's eyes were made for him by Orochimaru, so who really knows? And because these Sharingan were activated when they were extracted, they could never go below the form in which they were extracted. But that doesn't mean that they wouldn't be able to go above. See, because, well, obviously Shisui was the person to awaken Kodo Matsukame, Danzo very clearly has access to Kodo Matsukame. And while it's kind of hazy as to whether or not Kakashi awoke Kamui simultaneously with Obito, or Obito just awoke Kamui in both eyes, at the very least Kakashi was present for the awakening of a Sharingan to the MS form. That would be Kakashi. But since Danzo, Kakashi, and Shin can all oscillate from the base form of the Sharingan to the MS form of the Sharingan, if we think of the activation of the Byakugan like the activation of an MS from a base form Sharingan, then its deactivation in the hands of somebody whose last name isn't Hyuga actually makes sense. And really, why shouldn't it be like that? Byakugan has no higher form, at least one that's accessible to humans, than its simple activation. And one could say the same thing about the EMS. Well, obviously things like the EMS exist. Technically, your average human doesn't have access to anything above MS and or EMS. Now, obviously, if your average human gets access to Hagoromo's chakra, they'll be able to awaken a Rinnegan, but one can make the same argument for the evolution of the Byakugan into the Tenseigan, because one of the most prevailing theories in all of Boruto is that because Himawari has Otsutsuki chakra, she'll be able to awaken the Tenseigan. And let's not forget that Hagoromo is very much an Otsutsuki, and also not the only Otsutsuki with Rinnegan. On top of this, the activation of the Byakugan brings a considerable amount of strain to the eyes, and so does the activation of the MS. And while activating the Byakugan doesn't make that eye blind, it's still not super fun on your corneas, and thus the similarities between the activation of the Byakugan and the activation of MS are pretty glaring. And if you were to compare the two of these things, it would explain why the Byakugan truly never gets a power-up until the last. And thus, the real reason that the Hyuga set up their separated family structure is because they knew that their Byakugan was quite literally ripe for picking. And if they were to continually lose members of their clan who lost their Byakugan to the enemies that killed them, all relevance, strength, and political power they had would disappear, showing them and the rest of the world that there was truly nothing special about them outside of the fact that they were born with a Byakugan. But the Hyuga could have just become a Byakugan farm for other more powerful clans, as they and the rest of the world could very easily figure out that the Byakugan can be used by anyone, and therefore anybody would be able to achieve the level of power that your average Hyuga clan member has. And Ao is a living testament to that fact. But this raises an age-old question that I've answered multiple times. Well then, how did Ao get his Byakugan? And while we don't know for sure, the two conventionally accepted theories is that either he killed a member of the main branch family, which is a possibility in the Third Great Shinobi World War for sure, as it was one of the deadliest conflicts in ninja history. And the second possibility is that he just pulled the Danzo and plucked the eyeball out of somebody's face while they were still alive, be they main branch or side branch family, because the curse seal doesn't kick in until the person dies, and therefore if you pluck the eyeball out of a side branch family member, then you get the eye. But all that really matters is that Ao ended up with a Byakugan, and he has the ability to use it technically as well as any Hyuga clansman, outside of obviously the exception of Gentle Fist, which is a taijutsu you have to train in for multiple years. But does any of this excuse the existence of the side branch family? No, the side branch family basically lives as indentured servants to the main branch, and the cruelty and wrongness of that system is one of the major talking points of OG Naruto. In fact, it's one of the most compelling plot points of OG Naruto.
Well then, Nick, what should the Hyuga have done in order to protect their Byakugan?
It's actually incredibly simple. Just put the curse seals on everybody and don't include the whole thing of, oh hey, a couple of people can melt the other people's brains if the other people are acting up. Because if everybody's got a curse seal, then the second they die, their Byakugan are sealed away, and now there's no caste system. It's stunning simple. We set up the system to stop Byakugan from being stolen. Why do half the people not have the thing that stops the Byakugan from being stolen? It's probably how Ao ended up with one in the first place. It's wildly idiotic. But what do you guys think? Do you believe it was people like Ao that made the Hyuga set up their two-family system? Tell me in the comments below, and while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Imagine being the guy who's just like placing the curse seals on everyone. He's like, man, it's crazy how these stop them from getting their eyes stolen. I'm gonna go melt somebody's brain now.